Welcome back to Scotty's Hobbies. Today is April 8th. There was a Transportation Committee meeting here in the California Senate today. Part of that meeting was covering SB 712, Leno's Law. This video right here is a recording I took of me watching that whole video, the whole meeting that was going on. I was able to record it with my phone. It took forever. It's about an hour. I did miss a few minutes here and there from having to replace the battery, not replace the battery, but get the charger. And I actually did have to replace the memory card. So stay tuned, watch the whole video. The more towards the end is where I'm missing a little bit here and there, but you don't miss anything really at all. If you want to take away from what I got out of the committee meeting today, look for a link in the description below or in the first comment. And at the end of the video, you will get to see the vote that took place in the committee meeting today. Like, subscribe, share, check out the video library. Let's start watching this committee meeting together.
Senator Grove on Senate Bill 712. Senator Grove, you may come forward and you may begin when ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today I rise to present Senate Bill 712, known as Leno's Law. The bill proposes a rolling exemption for classic cars that are 35 years or older, allowing them to be exempted from the biennial smog check program. Additionally, it would exempt these vehicles from smog check upon the transfer of ownership, ensuring that the smog protection follows the vehicle. I'd like to first acknowledge and thank the sponsor of Leno's Law, the former Tonight Show host, Jay Leno. He personally owns an extensive collection of classic cars and showcases these vehicles along with many other classic cars to millions of people on his YouTube channel, Jay Leno's Garage. Jay, like many other car enthusiasts, is passionate about preserving the automotive history and maintaining these vehicles in their original condition, from lowriders to cruisers to hot rods to JDM fans to classic car collectors and many more. Jay recognizes that these cars are pieces of history and rich in culture and should be preserved for many generations. Previously, California had a 25-year rolling smog check exemption for certain vehicles until 2005, when it was repealed. Leno's Law will bring back that rolling exemption, something that car collectors have been asking for many years. Classic car owners in this room and many across the state of California who could not make it here today can attest that their vehicles are primarily used for shows, parades, and special events, and not for daily driving activities. In fact, the California DMV estimates that vehicles manufactured between 1976 and 1991 make up only about 1% of the 30 million registered cars. Members, we're talking about 1% or less of the vehicles in the state of California. Of that 1%, significantly fewer cars will qualify as a classic car that are currently defined in the vehicle code. Furthermore, this code defines a vehicle as being used primarily for shows, parades, charitable functions, and historical exhibitions for display, maintenance, and preservation, and it's not primarily for transportation. Many of the members in this room, including our own governor, enjoys riding in these classic cars in parades, or they actually own their own classic cars. Car enthusiasts from across the state have contacted my office to express how difficult it is to find a smog check station with the equipment necessary that works for their vehicle. In some instances, these classic vehicles are sold out of state because California loses that revenue. I had one member, a colleague of mine, that told me that she had to interfere with the constituent services because it took almost 6 months to get that constituent in line for a smog check, because there's very few of these facilities in Southern California. The economic engine that these cars create is specifically tire shops, paint shops, upholstery shops, and all of that is lost when these cars leave our state. From lowriders, cruisers, muscle cars, and diverse groups, these people enjoy expressing themselves through their collector cars. In fact, lowrider cultures were developed by Mexican Americans in and around Southern California after World War II. Enthusiasts modified cars to ride low to the ground and give them an elaborate color paint jobs. Groups of lowriders would drive their vehicles low and slow through town and as a pastime for cruising. The legislature conformed to that dedication, the preserving the lowrider culture, when they passed AB 436 Alvarez in 2023, which lifts the restrictions for lowrider cruising, a cultural and artistic tradition developed by Latinos in our beautiful Golden State. SB 712 ensures that all individuals are able to participate in the car culture. This is a common sense measure to ensure that vehicles continue to be a part of our rolling history in California. For these reasons, I respectfully ask for your aye vote. With me today to testify as the first witness, who really needs no introduction to specifically this subject matter, is the sponsor of Leno's Law, and who allowed us to affectionately name it Leno's Law, is none other than car enthusiast, TV icon Jay Leno. He's lent his voice and his name for every classic car enthusiast in California. Whether you've restored a classic car under the shade tree with your son or your father, or you are, Mr. Leno is here to make sure that you are represented not only in this building but in the state of California. Please accept my first witness, Mr. Jay Leno.
And Senator, if I can pause for just a moment. Mr. Leno, if you can bear with us a moment.
Sure.
I want to make sure that we establish a quorum here while we can, so that we can vote on this bill and the others that follow it. Assistant, please call the roll.
Senators Cortese?
Here.
Cortese here. Strickland?
Here.
Strickland here. Archuleta?
Here.
Archuleta here. Aregin? Blixpier?
Here.
Blixpier here. Cervantes? Dali? Gonzalez? Grayson?
Here.
Grayson here. Limon? Menjivar?
Here.
Menjivar here. Richardson?
Here.
Richardson here. Ciarto?
Here.
Ciarto here. Umberg? Valadares?
We do have a quorum. Mr. Leno,
Yes.
please proceed. You'll have a couple minutes.
Okay, well, I try to be a role model here a little bit in California because people have their eye on you all the time. I mean, I drive my electric cars during the week, and weekends I work on my older antique vehicles. I have a 1989 car I bought new. It is completely stock. It has 27,000 miles, which is less than 1,000 miles a year. And every 2 years, the smog comes around. It's an example where modern cars after 2000, you just plug in and you pass or you don't pass. It's all computerized. Older cars, you got to put on the rolling road, and those kind of shops don't have the equipment anymore. They all got rid of it to do the fast plug in, get your money, boom, get out. It's very quick to get a smog check with a modern car. It's not impossible in an older car, but it's tricky. It takes time, and often charges 4, 5, 6 times more than a regular car if you can find a rolling road. If it's in Downey, or if you have a 4-wheel drive vehicle from that era, it's almost impossible to find a rolling road that's set up for it. So that's one problem. The other is cars in California last not literally forever, but our climate is such that cars from the 80s and 90s can still look brand new just because of our weather. And the idea is not like having an old rust bucket if you live in a neighboring state. And we're not asking for anything more than what every other state has. I mean, California is the strictest in the nation and will continue to be. I mean, I lived here in the 70s when they tell you 100 days a year, don't go outside. I mean, I'm all for emissions. I think it's a good thing. I keep my cars running perfectly, but it's such a small percentage. And the biggest problem is if a car from the 30s would be almost easier to do than a car from the 90s, because with the computerized equipment from 90s, 80s, 90s, they don't make it anymore. The car's no longer in production, so you can't even get the smog equipment in a lot of cases to make your car legal. And that's primarily why we want to do this. Mike will tell you the economic impact. I mean, hot rodding started here in California. It's kind of a lifestyle, and it's a fun thing to do. I mean, my thing is most of these cars are like an ATV or a snowmobile. People take them out on weekends. They drove 10 or 15 miles to go to a classic car event in a park. They have a cookout, they have the car show, and they go back. These aren't cars used as daily drivers. As I said, when I have to go to San Diego, even down to Hermosa Beach or anywhere, I'll use an electric car, and it works perfectly well. I mean, my garage is solar. We use biodegradable products when we restore cars. We use water-based paints. We really try to be an example, because I'm the guy they look at when these things happen, you know. And I don't like like the fact that people have to sort of become criminals if they have a car from the 90s because it won't pass. So they get some guy to give them a phony piece of paper or register it in another state, or it just seems like it's an awful lot of work for something that doesn't seem like that big a deal, being just 1%.
Thank you very much. The next witness. And please, you might want to re-identify yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Corsese, Vice Chair Strickland, and members of the committee for the opportunity to speak with you here today. All I ever wanted was a black Grand National. That's the first line of TV Off, a song by Kendrick Lamar, a Pulitzer Prize-winning musician from Los Angeles and one of the most powerful voices of this generation. For him, it's just not a lyric. Kendrick said that his dad brought him home from the hospital in a 1987 Buick Regal Grand National. Years later, after making it big, he bought one for himself. Not for status, because it connected him to his roots. And earlier this year, in front of millions of viewers at the 25 Super Bowl halftime show, Kendrick featured that very car on stage, a symbol of his pride, history, and identity. That's what SB 712 is really about. It's about preserving access to automotive culture, especially for the next generation. My name is Mike Spagnola, and I serve as the president and CEO of the Specialty Equipment Market Association, better known as SEMA. You know, I've spent more than 5 decades now in this industry, as a small business owner, and now as the leader of a trade association, representing over 7,500 companies nationwide, including 1,500 innovative businesses right here in California. Our members design, build, and supply products that power the car culture and fuel the state's $40 billion aftermarket industry. Ask any car person, and they'll tell you that we all have that one special car, a special project, a family memory, something that sparked a lifelong passion. For me, it was a 1970 Datsun 240Z. For today's generation, those cars aren't from the 50s or 60s. They're the 1980s and 1990s. Kendrick Lamar's 1987 Grand National, the Fox Body Mustang, or Marty's Toyota 4x4 from Back to the Future. Those are the cars. They aren't daily drivers. They are driven to events, restored in garages, and brought out on weekends. But despite being rarely driven, they are still subject to testing requirements that have become almost impossible to meet. Only 7% of California smog checks are performed on these vehicles from that vintage, and most STAR certified stations test fewer than one of these vehicles per day. That's because maintaining a bar 97 emissions equipment required to test these older cars is costly and rarely used, and you can't even buy parts for them anymore, as Jay had said. So when you can find testing and when you can find the place, it comes at a high price, reflected as an added burden for those few stations that can still perform those tests. Yet the state smog check exemption still only applies to vehicles built before 1976, a threshold set by the legislator in 2004, and one that hasn't been updated in over 2 decades. Since then, California's fleet has changed. Technology has improved, and a new generation of enthusiasts have come of age. It's time for this policy to catch up. That's where SEMA and its members come in. Through the SEMA Garage in Diamond Bar, California, we work directly with CARB, the California Air Resources Board, and EPA to test and certify parts that keep these cars legal. We keep them running and we keep them emissions compliant. In fact, the SEMA Garage is responsible for more than half the EOs issued in the aftermarket in this state. This bill ensures that the future generations will still have a way to car culture without unnecessary barriers. California's specialty automotive aftermarket supports more than 149,000 jobs in this state and generates over $6 billion a year in tax revenue. But behind those numbers are builders, fabricators, small business owners, young men and women, and yes, kids like Kendrick Lamar, who fall in love with a car and want to bring it back to life. SB 712 ensures that the story isn't shut down by red tape. It gives people a way in, to reconnect, to belong, to learn how to work on cars themselves. On behalf of SEMA and our members and the next generation of enthusiasts, I respectfully urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
All right, thank you both for your testimony. We'll come back to the committee shortly. There may be some questions, so we just ask you to stay there. Is there anyone in the committee room who wishes to express a support position? If so, please come forward now. You're entitled to say your name, any affiliation that you have, if you have one, and support. That's it.
Jerry Thompson, Modesto area, in support of SB 712.
Thank you.
Tina Perez Tateo from Modesto, California, in support of SB 7112.
James Lombardo on behalf of Beta, California, in support. Thank you.
Amy Granite, Managing Director of Corva, the California Off-Road Vehicle Association, in support.
Bob Stearns, President of the Association of California Car Clubs. I support 712. Thank you.
Mike Frankovich, I'm the founder of the Californians for Classic Car Smog Exemptions Facebook group from Pasadena, California, and I support.
Mike Furix, Elk Grove, California. I'm director of the local Buick Club of America chapter, and we are in support of AB 712.
Daniel Marquez, South Sacramento, just a guy with the Mustang.
We'll take that as a support.
Colonel Steve Spotola, Stockton. I have 4 cars, 78s and 84 and 85 that require these. I belong to 3 auto clubs. Thank you very much, and I'm in support.
Mark Sanders, Lafayette, California. Like the story goes, lifetime car guy. I own 2 cars that would be affected by this bill, and I'm in support.
Hi, I'm Steve Schneid. I worked for this committee for 25 years. I wrote the original bill with Quentin Kopp back in the 90s, and it was a rolling exemption. And once Quentin left, was termed out, the ARB succeeded in ending the rolling aspect.
We'll take that as a support. Thank you.
So I'm in support very strongly. Thank you.
Sorry, I can't give you more time.
Karen McLaughlin, Executive Director of the California Automobile Museum. On behalf of all the automobile museums in Sacramento and all of our supporters, we are in support of the bill.
Good afternoon. Chandler Knapp, classic car collector, as well as a member of the Board of Directors, California Automobile Museum, expressing support for SB 712.
Hello, Joseph McMeans. I'm just in support of SB 712, El Dorado County. Thank you.
Hello, Jason Walrath, owner of a hot rod shop here in town, Gearhead Garage, longtime car builder, just trying to support our local community here, and we love your support here, so I'm in support of the bill.
Steve Wright, Valencia, California. I'm in support of SB 712.
I'm Derek Cherdema from Carmichael, California, and I'm in support of SB 712.
Steve Hamp from Redding, California. I've got 8 cars that could really use this. Thank you.
Hi, David Swift from Tahunga, California, in support of SB 712. Thank you.
All right, thank you all for your testimony. Now is the time for any opposition testimony. We don't have registered opposition, to my knowledge. Oh, we do? Okay. Thank you. We'll come on forward and we can take the 2 chairs over here.
I did not know there was anybody against this. This is kind of crazy.
Thank you. You'll have a couple minutes each, and I'll let you self-identify.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I think there's like 10 groups in opposition in the analysis. I'm Brendan Tuig on behalf of the California Air Pollution Control Officers Association, which are the executive officers from all 35 local air districts. Air districts don't, in opposition, air districts don't administer the smog check program, but we're supporters because it's a cost-effective and equitable way of achieving emissions reductions that are essential to meeting federal clean air attainment standards. Whether a car is a collector is largely self-defined, and under this bill, an owner of a vehicle just has to think it, and then they can get the exemption as long as their car is 35 years old. Under the smog check program, cars don't have to meet the same standards as when they were new. They don't have to meet 2025 standards, and that's also because the program allows for the deterioration of the emission control systems over time. California Air Resources Board data shows that a 1982 passenger car that passes smog check emits approximately 123 times the NOx emissions of a 2025 car. So assuming the 1982 car is driven just 3,000 miles in a year, it's the NOx emissions equivalent of a 2025 car being driven 369,000 miles a year. And then for daily drivers, which would be allowed under this bill, at 11,000 miles a year, that's the equivalent of 1,353,000 miles. So if you think about it this way, while there are only 8,200 1982 cars, if they're all on the road in a day, that's the equivalent of 1 million 2025 cars being on the road that day. And we know they're not driving just one day. Again, these numbers are for one model year of cars that pass smog, but the bill exempts 15 years off the bat and adds another year every year. 1991 cars add about another 72,000. By the time you get to 1999, it's about another 349,000. And when we see emissions data for the other years, we'll likely be talking about the emissions equivalent of tens of millions of 2025 cars. So without smog check, emissions equipment can be tampered with or fail altogether, resulting in air pollution impacts substantially higher than what we discussed. So members, Mr. Chair, thank you for considering our perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Bill McGavran with the Coalition for Clean Air in opposition to what should be called the smog and soot bill, because that's what you get if you loosen smog check. Ozone or smog damages the respiratory tract, causing inflammation and irritation, resulting in coughing, chest tightness, and worsening of asthma symptoms. Fine particulate matter or soot causes premature death, increased hospitalization for heart and lung causes, bronchitis, asthma attacks, ER visits, respiratory damage, and restricted activity days, especially for older adults, for children, and for those with weakened respiratory systems. My wife recently was caught behind a parade of classic cars, came home with a headache because, you can really smell the fumes in the air. These older cars just don't have the emission controls that newer cars have. And that's, noted in the analysis. That's with the ones that comply with smog check. If you exempt them entirely, you open the door to tampering, makes the situation much worse. For these reasons, in 2004, then Assembly member Sally Lieber, who's here today, authored the law that froze the exemption at 1976. That bill was opposed by Mr. Leno and signed by Governor Schwarzenegger over Mr. Leno's objections. That was the right decision then. It's the right decision now. This bill would roll back that existing standard. And at a time when we're facing really vicious attacks from the federal government on California's air quality, I don't know why the California legislature would want to add to that problem. This is one of the worst bills we've seen this year for damaging our air quality. We urge you to hold the bill in committee.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Any others in the committee room who would like to express opposition may come forward now and indicate their name, any affiliation, and opposed.
Good afternoon, members and Mr. Chair. Jacob Evans with Sierra Club, California in opposition.
Good afternoon. I'm Will Barrett. I'm the National Senior Director for Clean Air Advocacy with the American Lung Association in strong opposition, also representing the Physicians for Social Responsibility Bay Area chapter and Regional Asthma Management Prevention Program. Thank you.
Hello, Michelle Canales with the Union of Concerned Scientists in opposition.
I'm Sally Lieber, currently on the State Board of Equalization, and was mentioned I passed the law that contained this particular source of pollution in California, and I'm strongly opposed to repolluting California's skies, and I really doubt that.
You know the rules. You know the rules as a former assembly member.
Yeah, I doubt that a Latina mom with
or support if you support it this time.
Strongly oppose.
Thank you.
Good
Good afternoon. Grishina Mahabir, California Environmental Voters in Respectful Opposition. Thank you.
Alan Ebbs with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, original co-sponsor of the Lieber bill, strong opposition to SB 712.
All right, thank you. It seems to conclude all support and opposition testimony, including in the committee room. We'll come back to the dais at this point. Senator Archuleta.
Thank you, Senator, for bringing this forward, and to our esteemed movie star, or TV star, you know, but here you're not. You're a car enthusiast, just like I am. You're here to stand up for men and women who own these beautiful automobiles. And I have a 1967 Oldsmobile 442. That automobile is tuned up twice a year. Not once every 5 years, twice a year. Oil change twice a year. Goes on and on. My wife and I searched everywhere for those hubcaps, the original rims rather, and tires. 2 years. When she found the ashtray, the original ashtray on eBay, I mean, we celebrated because it was original. Our goal was to keep the car, and the car is original. And I'm proud to say that every time I put it into a contest, I don't tell them who I am because I don't want to have any favoritism, but we always pull it off to walk away with a little tiny trophy about that size that says, what a quality car, what a beautiful car. And that 67 Oldsmobile 442 is all stock. And so I would be proud to support this bill because I know that when I supported the bill that low riding and cruising was not a crime. I did that as a former police officer because I knew the enthusiasts and people who own these cars that are in the audience, $30, $40, $50, $60, $80,000 into those automobiles. They are family heirlooms, and they're going from family member to family member. Talk about taking care of the environment. They do it because they want to, and every one of them a lot of them are born and raised here in California. They want to stay in California. They want their business in California. And speaking about California, in this beautiful district of the 30th Senate District, we have a beautiful city called Diamond Bar. And that's where Michael and I met, and I've seen the shop, I've seen the work that he does for all automobiles, current, past, and future. So I applaud you for coming forward and putting this on our table so we can go ahead and understand. California is a very unique state. It does take care of its environment. It will continue to take care of its environment, but it also will love automobile enthusiasts. So I'm going to support the bill. I will move the bill at the appropriate time, and I thank you for coming forward.
Next will be Senator Valadares.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my dad never graduated high school, and what he, though, lacked in formal education, he made it for in skill and curiosity and heart. And when he was 15 years old, he took an auto shop class and built his first engine for a 57 Chevy, and that was a beautiful Chevy. And in our family, the classics aren't just cars. They're memories, they're dreams, they're a part of our heritage. And I still remember the summer of 1994, sitting in a midnight blue 1969 Chevy Malibu. And it didn't even have an engine yet, but I remember sitting in that driver's seat and imagine the day that I'd be cruising with that Malibu down Laurel Canyon in the San Fernando Valley. And it wasn't just a car, it was a bond between me and my dad. And on my wedding day, he actually gave me a 47 Chevy truck, which is the hardest thing to drive because it doesn't have power steering. My dad is a mechanic, and he rebuilds the classics with his friends, with his sons, with his cousins. I've been under a few hoods myself, and it's not just a hobby, it's culture. And it's low riding, it's tradition, it's a place where fathers and daughters find a connection. And where generations pass down not just knowledge, but pride and identity. And it's expensive. You know, parts are hard to find, and that drives up prices. And my dad is the parts guy. So he's always hunting for what's missing or has what's missing. There's people calling his phone constantly. Hey, Fernando, do you have this part? Yeah, I have it. I don't have it. I'll find it. And on top of that, we know that the smog checks for these cars are another immense cost. It's time, it's money, it's frustration for families who are just trying to keep their pieces of history alive. And that's why I think that changing the smog exemption to apply to collector cars that are at least 35 years old is more than reasonable. I want to thank Senator Grove for bringing this bill forward. I want to thank Mr. Leno for using your voice to support families. And yes, my dad called me and he asked me if I'd be voting for this, and I did tell him, of course, Dad, I don't want to get in trouble. He has way too many classics in the garage that I want to make sure I inherit. So I want to thank you for bringing this bill forward. I'm looking forward to supporting and voting aye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Senator Blaispear.
Okay, thank you. Well, with all due respect to the author and to the chair, who I know is a co-author, and to Mr. Leno, and to everybody who came in support of this bill, I'm not able to support it today. I want to take a minute to explain my position. So I serve as the chair of the Environmental Quality Committee, and unfortunately, historically, smog check exemption bills have not been referred to my EQ, Environmental Quality Committee, and I think that's a real shame. I would like to be on record saying that I think this should be reconsidered because any other type of air pollution related bill would come through the Environmental Quality Committee, and so there's really no reason that this bill wouldn't come through. But I'm wearing the hat of both committees, Transportation and EQ, because it is not going to be coming through an Environmental Committee on the Senate side. So it's important to refocus on the reason that we have smog checks in the first place, and it's because of the air pollution that they cause. So the opposition witnesses gave a lot of
days to fix that, or you can't. It's an issue with. So we didn't touch that code section either. We're not stopping people. We're not helping people pollute. We're just allowing car enthusiasts to be able to participate in the 1980s and some in the 90s, and let it be a rollover like it used to be, consistent with every other state in the nation, but with a 10-year extra gap. Instead of 25 years, it's 35 years.
Thank you. If there's no one else, Senator Richardson, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to commend the author. With the work that we do, some bills are harder than others, and it's kind of tough when you take on something that is going to have a tough way to go. So first of all, I want to commend the author for the effort that she's made thus far, and hopefully the success that we'll see. Second of all, I want to thank Mr. Leno for coming today. It's really enjoyable to see you in such good health. Many of us pull for you, and you're also an icon like many of your cars are. And your only promise today is you have to promise not to take this material back of what you saw today in jokes that you'll share.
They wouldn't believe it.
But you're right. You're right on that. So with that, I just want to point out a couple things. One, I represent a part of my district, the 35th District, San Pedro, California, and I happen to reside in San Pedro. And in San Pedro, we have many car clubs, but one in particular is the Legends Vintage Car Club. And usually about 2 times a year, there's these major car shows. People line up early in the morning, like I'm going to church at 8 o'clock, and they're already lining up to participate. And I would say that every Sunday, whether there's a car club meeting or not, there's always vintage cars in my neighborhood on Paseo del Mar. And it's the thing where people come, they park their car, they have Sunday afternoon lunch, everyone walks by. It's a very highly walked area. People walk by, I walk by, and I dream about which one is going to be mine one day and what color I want it to be. In fact, I shared with Mr. Leno that I want a 57 convertible Bel Air, and I told him I had a 94 Speedster, which are only made in 89 and 94. And he said, well, why'd you get rid of it? And I said, well, I had to pay off my ex-husband in the divorce. So, true story. So, that being said, I had written down a question here.
as the discussion was going back and forth about whether this bill was really going to avoid people from having properly operated vehicles. And I looked up really quickly as fast as I could on my phone. And in addition to the code that the author cited, in California Vehicle Code 4001, makes it illegal to operate a vehicle on a highway in a way that violates the law, including operating a vehicle that is unregistered, not equipped as required, or not in compliance with size, weight, load, or provisions, among other things. So I just think it's really important to convey that the smog is only one portion. If a older vintage car is not safe, if it's not being driven properly, many of the other aspects, there are guardrails to make sure that they are being operated appropriately in our communities. So I commend you again, our author. I look forward to voting on this bill in a positive way and us continuing this wonderful culture of what California is all about. Thank you, ma'am.
Senator Cervantes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly want to make some points and echo some statements that my fellow senators made. As a former author of the lowrider resolution, many of us understand the cultural and historical significance of these beautiful vehicles. I do want to acknowledge that we know that many of these collector vehicles are only driven for parades on the weekends. Many of them don't have high mileage. We want to actually keep them low, given that I have many family members that drive low riders on the weekends and supporting nonprofit events throughout the district. But I do want to also express some of the concerns that my fellow colleagues did bring up as it relates to some individuals who may want to exploit the collector status to avoid our emission compliance. I want to make sure we are not undermining our air quality in our state and all the efforts that we have made. And so I just ask that if this bill does continue, that there is perhaps more conversation around that and maybe looking at a mileage cap, just some suggestions. I will support the bill today to get it out of committee. However, I will reserve my right, should it hit the floor, to read the language, but just appreciate the work being done thus far, and will again support these efforts as it continues.
Thank you, ma'am.
Senator Sayarto here, yeah.
Thank you. I walked in as my colleague was saying these issues are very difficult, but they're really not. This is not a difficult issue. These old collector cars, they're not a plethora of them running around driving all over our highways. They're exactly as some of my colleagues have already described. They are such a minuscule part of any environmental issues that we have that they're negligible. And yet, 1 year we're arguing for people to go out and be able to.
I'm just making this that there's still all the enforcement mechanisms. Pre-1976, they're exempt from smog. Pre-1976, they don't have to have collector car insurance, but have to have insurance. They still have to fall under the vehicle code section that Ms. Richardson read. They still have to fall under the vehicle code section of 259 that defines a collector vehicle, and they still have to fall under the CHP code that the CHP officers gave us this morning.
So I guess that I would say that for clarification, I think that the absence of collector car insurance is the piece that I worry about, not because because I don't have another equivalent to verify. Okay. And that's the issue. If that is no longer on the table, what is the equivalent that will verify? And I'm not sure. I believe that, a person who is doing the smog check is the equivalent of the verification that the collector's car insurance provided. And so that to me is the guardrails that I'm talking about. I think the pieces about, there is something special about collector's cards. I don't need to be convinced about that. I absolutely believe it, and I.
Aye.
Cortese, I. Strickland.
Aye.
Strickland, I. Archuleta.
Aye.
Archuleta, I. Aregin.
Aye.
Aregin, I. Blakespear.
No.
Blakespear, no. Cervantes.
Aye.
Cervantes, I. Daly. Daly, I. Gonzalez. Grayson. Limon? Menjivar? No. Menjivar, no. Richardson? Aye. Richardson, aye. Sayarto? Aye. Sayarto, aye. Umberg? Valladares? Aye. Valladares, aye.
All right, we'll leave that bill on call, and as we have absent members, it's 9-2 presently. 9 ayes, 2 noes. We have absent members. We'll keep the bill on call to continue.
Thank you, Mr.
Provide
Chair.
an opportunity to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, members.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick recess, but I do want to thank all of the witnesses, including those